The fluorescent lights of Sterling Corp hummed a familiar, soul-crushing tune, the kind that burrows into your eardrums and replays on a loop in your nightmares. It was the soundtrack to my life for 2 decades. 20 years. 2 solid decades of showing up before the sun, of knowing where every loose floorboard creaked, which server rack hummed with a particularly concerning tremor, and precisely how much sugar the CEO, Bartholomew Barty Finch, liked in his triple-shot espresso. Yeah, I knew his sugar preference. Barty Finch, the man who walked around Sterling Corp like a peacock with a trust fund, convinced his every pronouncement was gospel and his every fleeting whim a strategic imperative. He'd stand in the open plan office, mic dropped with a flair that suggested he'd just invented the concept of meetings, and declare, "Team, we are not just colleagues, we are family. We ride together, we die together." He'd usually punctuate this with a dramatic sweep of his hand, narrowly missing the artisanal succulence that inexplicably dotted every available surface. Family. It's a word that can mean a lot of things. In Barty's lexicon, it meant you were expected to bleed for the company, to sacrifice your weekends, your sanity, and your personal life, all while he delivered rousing speeches about synergy and disruption from his glass-walled executive suite. My role? I was Arthur Penhaligon, senior systems architect, which in reality meant I was the guy who kept the entire damn digital infrastructure from imploding like a faulty souffle. I built the networks, I coded the proprietary software that made Sterling Corp's fortunes, I debugged the nightmares when Barty's latest innovative software update decided to spontaneously combust, and I did it quietly. I'm not a look at me kind of guy. My satisfaction came from the elegant hum of a perfectly optimized system, from the knowledge that I was the invisible scaffolding holding up a skyscraper of corporate ambition. My business card didn't have the flash of a marketing executive's or the gravitas of a board member's. It was understated, almost apologetic, reflecting my role, keeping the engines running while the brass band played on. My desk wasn't in the executive wing. Oh no. It was tucked away in a corner of the 3rd floor, a cozy little nook next to the perpetually overflowing recycling bins and the aroma of lukewarm coffee that perpetually clung to the air like a cheap suit. It was here, amidst the discarded printouts and the faint scent of desperation, that I truly knew Sterling Corp. I knew which cables were fraying, which databases were whispering secrets they shouldn't, and which forgotten script from 2017 still held a backdoor access point only I understood. Barty, on the other hand, knew how to order a custom-made ergonomic chair that cost more than my first car. He knew how to charm venture capitalists with buzzwords that sounded impressive but meant precisely nothing. He knew how to delegate. That was his real superpower. Delegating all the actual work to people like me, the ones who never asked for the spotlight, the ones who were just happy to keep the gears turning. And for 20 years, that was enough. I built Sterling Corp's core technology. I architected the very systems that generated their billions. I was the ghost in their machine, the silent partner in their success. My stock options, painstakingly accrued over 2 decades of loyalty, were supposed to be my retirement. My nest egg, my golden parachute after years of hard labor. They were set to vest in precisely 24 hours. A nice round number, a lifetime of work culminating in a single, satisfying exhale. This Tuesday morning started like any other Tuesday morning for the past 2 decades. Alarm at 5:15, a.m. coffee brewed strong enough to dissolve steel. A quick glance at the local news to ensure the world hadn't ended overnight. Then, the drive to Sterling Corp, the familiar route, the parking garage, the brisk walk through the lobby, nodding to Brenda at reception who was always meticulously applying her makeup before 7 a.m. I even had my personalized mug ready, the one with a slightly faded picture of a very serious-looking server rack. Barty had once joked about it. "Arthur," he'd boomed, clapping me on the shoulder with a force that threatened to dislocate my rotator cuff, "that mug deserves its own IPO." I just smiled and said, "It's seen me through a lot, Barty." Little did he know. I was settling into my ergonomic chair, mine was the slightly less ostentatious model, of course, about to dive into the morning system checks when Brenda's voice crackled over the intercom. "Arthur, please report to the executive suite immediately. Mr. Finch wishes to see you." Now, Executive Suite wasn't exactly my usual stomping ground. That's where the decisions were made, the deals were brokered, and the strategically vital succulents were kept watered. My domain was the digital underworld, the humming, blinking heart of the operation. But Barty called, so I went. I straightened my tie, patted down my nondescript tweed jacket, and made my way to the gleaming, glass-encased sanctum of power. The air in Barty's office was different. It was perfumed with something expensive and vaguely floral, and the silence was so profound it felt like a physical pressure. Barty was there, of course, looking unnervingly composed for a Tuesday morning. He was perched on the edge of his ridiculously oversized desk, his expensive loafers tapping a silent, unnerving rhythm on the polished wood. Beside him sat a woman I'd never seen before. Sharp suit, sharp haircut, sharp eyes that assessed me like I was a bug under a microscope. She had a formidable-looking briefcase and a smile that didn't quite reach them. "Arthur, my man," Barty said, his voice booming, a stark contrast to the quiet atmosphere. Come in, have a seat." He gestured to a chair that looked suspiciously like a throne. "Aye, Saturday." "Thank you, Mr. Finch," I replied, keeping my voice even. "Arthur," Barty began, leaning forward, that unnerving smile firmly in place. "We've had a lot of discussions lately about strategic realignment, about streamlining our operations, about efficiency." He paused, letting the buzzwords hang in the air like a suffocating fog. I nodded, my mind already racing. Strategic realignment, streamlining operations, efficiency. These were the coded phrases, the euphemisms for "we're letting people go." But who? And why me? I was the backbone. I was the one who fixed things when they broke. I was the one who knew how to keep the lights on. As part of this realignment, Barty continued, his eyes fixed on mine, but somehow also looking past me, as if I were merely a placeholder, we've had to make some very difficult decisions. Decisions that, frankly, are about future-proofing the company. The woman beside him remained silent, her expression unreadable. She was the enforcer, I realized. The HR equivalent of a debt collector. "Arthur," Barty said, his tone shifting, losing a fraction of its forced warmth, "your position as senior systems architect is being eliminated." The words hit me not with the force of a punch, but with the insidious chill of ice water. Eliminated, just like that. 20 years of my life, reduced to a bullet point on a restructuring memo. "My position?" I managed to ask, my voice a little rougher than I intended. "But the stock options? They vest tomorrow?" Barty's smile faltered for the barest of moments, a flicker of something that might have been unease, quickly masked by an almost imperceptible tightening around his jaw. "Yes, Arthur, the options. That's unfortunate timing. However, as per company policy regarding termination, your options will not vest. They will be forfeited." Forfeited. The word echoed in the silent office, a death knell for my future, my retirement, my security. They were not just firing me, they were stealing from me. They were literally pulling the rug out from under me on the precipice of my reward. It was more than just unfair, it was predatory. It was the ultimate betrayal of that family he so often preached about. The sharp-eyed woman finally spoke, her voice smooth and professional, like polished glass. "Mr. Finch is correct, Arthur. Your termination is effective immediately. We have a severance package prepared. It includes 3 months' salary, continuation of health benefits for 90 days, and a standard non-disclosure agreement. We will also require the return of all company property, your badge, your laptop, any proprietary documentation, of course." Proprietary documentation. My heart gave a little lurch. I'd always been meticulous. Every line of code, every architectural diagram, every system configuration, meticulously documented, backed up, and stored. Not on the company network, not entirely. Some of it was personal, secure, because I knew deep down that this day might come. I was the architect, but I was also the custodian of Sterling Corp's digital soul. I stood up. My legs felt steady, surprisingly so. There was no anger yet, just a profound sense of clarity. The world had just tilted on its axis, and in that disorienting shift, I saw everything with a stark, crystalline precision. Barty Finch, the Peacock CEO, preening for his investors, happy to sacrifice the invisible man who kept his entire operation from collapsing. The woman with the sharp suit, the HR executioner, efficiently carrying out the dirty work. They thought they were being decisive. They thought they were being strategic. They were just being greedy and short-sighted. Very well, I said, my voice calm, even. I will gather my personal belongings. Please have the severance agreement and the property return form ready. As I walked out of Barty's office, the opulent silence felt like a mockery. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout. I simply walked, my footsteps echoing on the polished marble, a stark contrast to the frantic beating of my heart. I went back to my desk, the one by the recycling bins. I looked at my familiar, slightly stained mug, the one with the server rack. I looked at my understated business card, and then I looked at the files on my computer. Not the company network, not the cloud storage they could remotely wipe. The secure partition, the one I'd built myself using encryption algorithms I'd written, keyed with a passphrase derived from a series of obscure mathematical constants that only I would ever recognize. They thought they were firing a cog. They had no idea they were evicting the man who owned the blueprints. And that, my friends, is where the real fun begins. This isn't about anger anymore. This is about justice. Sterling Corp was about to learn that when you discard the foundation, the entire skyscraper is destined to crumble. And I, Arthur Penhaligon, had all the tools to make sure that crumble was slow, deliberate, and spectacularly public. The stock options were a nice perk, but they were never the prize. The prize was the knowledge that I had the power to dismantle their entire operation, piece by digital piece, and that they, in their infinite corporate arrogance, had handed me the key. The sterile air of my former office, now a sterile box of packing tape and discarded memories, offered no comfort. They'd given me an hour to pack my personal effects, an hour to sift through 2 decades of my life to decide what was worth taking from the wreckage of Sterling Corp. They'd assumed I'd be weeping, begging, or trying to salvage a company laptop. They were wrong. My personal effects were already meticulously cataloged, backed up, and stored. My real property wasn't in the boxes. It was in the secure partition of a personal drive encrypted with algorithms I'd personally designed. It was in the archived emails, the forgotten internal memos, the system logs that whispered truths no one wanted to hear. As I meticulously packed my worn, leather-bound copy of The Pragmatic Programmer, my father's old fountain pen, and a framed photo of my late wife, I could feel their eyes on me. Not physical eyes, of course, but the invisible surveillance of a corporation that had just fired its most vital organ. They were watching the network logs, no doubt, looking for unusual data transfers, for signs of a digital exodus. They wouldn't find one. Not for my company accounts, at least. My exit strategy began the moment Barty Finch uttered the word eliminated. The shock was a fleeting wave. What followed was a cold, calculated calm. I spent those final weeks, even after they'd officially let me go, subtly reinforcing my digital perimeter. Not by sabotaging systems, that would be too crude, too obvious. Instead, I performed meticulous maintenance. I optimized scripts that were designed to run on a schedule, scripts that handled everything from database backups to automated client communication. And in those scripts, I embedded tiny, almost imperceptible delays. A fraction of a second here, a millisecond there. Individually, they were nothing. Collectively, over thousands of daily operations, they would compound, like a slow-acting poison in the veins of Sterling Corp. Back in my quiet home office, the silence was a welcome change from the incessant hum of Sterling Corp. The fluorescent glare of the office had been replaced by the warm glow of my monitor. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was a shareholder of a different kind, a shareholder in their potential downfall. My first task was organization. Every email Barty had ever sent about synergy, every HR memo about performance metrics, every client proposal that I'd silently corrected, I cross-referenced them with system logs that proved my direct involvement, my authorship, my hours of unseen labor. I created a timeline, not of my tenure, but of their deceit. A digital tapestry woven with their own words and my irrefutable contributions, I began by establishing a secure, off-site communication channel, not email that could be monitored. A peer-to-peer encrypted messaging app only accessible through a specific sequence of network protocols that only I knew how to establish. My first message, sent to a carefully curated list of individuals, began not with accusations, but with a quiet inquiry. To select individuals. Subject: clarification on system integrity and client commitments. Dear colleagues, I trust this message finds you well. Following my recent departure from Sterling Corp, I have become aware of certain operational adjustments being made to our core systems. In my capacity as senior systems architect for 2 decades, I have always prioritized the stability and integrity of our infrastructure, ensuring seamless service delivery for our valued clients. As a point of due diligence, I am compiling documentation regarding the architecture and maintenance protocols for key Sterling Corp platforms. This is purely for my personal archival purposes, and to ensure that any legacy documentation I hold is accurate and complete, as is standard professional practice. Should any critical system anomalies arise, or if specific client queries arise concerning the underlying architecture of systems I personally designed and maintained, please do not hesitate to reach out via the secure channel provided. My intention is solely to ensure the continued smooth operation of the business I helped build and to facilitate any necessary information transfer should the need arise. Sincerely, Arthur Penhaligon. I sent it with a link to a secure portal containing a meticulously compiled dossier, not damning evidence yet, but the blueprints, the proof of my foundational role. I didn't expect an immediate response. I wasn't asking for one. I was planting seeds. The first tremor was subtle. A major client, Horizon Enterprises, a long-standing account that represented nearly 15% of Sterling Corp's revenue, sent a polite but firm inquiry. Their project manager, a woman named Evelyn Reed, whom I'd worked with closely for years, had noticed unusual delays in their automated reporting system, the system I'd built from the ground up. Her email, forwarded to Barty and the new interim head of operations, a man whose resume boasted more buzzwords than actual experience, landed like a brick in their overflowing inbox. Dear Mr. Finch, Evelyn's email read, "We are experiencing unexpected delays in the daily data aggregation and report generation for the Project Phoenix integration. Our usual turnaround time is within 4 hours, but over the past 2 days, it has extended to over 8 hours, and the data integrity checks are flagging discrepancies. This is impacting our critical business decisions. Can you please advise on the cause and expected resolution time?" Barty, predictably, outsourced the problem. A frantic email chain ensued, copied to me, an involuntary recipient, it seemed, and other former colleagues. The new head of ops, a Mr. Sterling Vance, responded with utter incompetence. "We are aware of minor system fluctuations. Our team is working diligently to restore optimal performance. We anticipate resolution within 2448 hours. Thank you for your patience." Minor system fluctuations, the irony was delicious. He had no idea what minor truly meant when it came to the intricate web I'd spun. The embedded delays in the scheduled scripts were starting to compound. Database queries that normally took milliseconds were now taking seconds. Automated data transfers that should have been instantaneous were now buffered, creating the cascading effect Evelyn had noticed. Then came the other ripples. An internal mass email from HR apologizing for unforeseen technical difficulties impacting internal communication platforms. Another from the sales department mentioning temporary disruptions to CRM data synchronization. Old colleagues, people I'd shared countless late nights and caffeine-fueled triumphs with, started reaching out, not through official channels, but through personal text messages. "Arthur, are you hearing about this stuff?" One read from Sarah, a former project manager. "The whole system's a mess. Barty's in full meltdown mode. He's blaming it, but they look as clueless as the island." Another from a junior developer named Kevin, who I'd mentored. "Dude, the reporting is completely broken. They're saying it's a glitch, but it feels deliberate, like someone's messing with the timing." Kevin was sharper than he looked. I responded to them all with variations of, "I'm just catching up on industry news," or "I'm sure they'll sort it out. I couldn't reveal my hand too early." They had to feel the pinch, to experience the void I'd left, before they understood the depth of the hole they were in. Sterling Corp's panic was palpable. Barty, who normally resided in his glass tower, was seen pacing the floors, his face a mask of bewildered fury. He was accustomed to problems he could delegate or charm away. This was different. This was a silent, pervasive rot, originating from the very foundations he'd taken for granted. He thought he'd fired a cog. He hadn't realized he'd pulled the pin on a digital grenade. The next stage was about precision. I didn't want to bring the entire system down. That would be messy, potentially catastrophic for innocent employees. I wanted to expose their incompetence, their reliance on my unseen labor, and their sheer audacity in betraying me. I selected a single, high-impact system. The Sterling Corp's automated client billing and invoicing system. A complex beast I'd personally architected to ensure accuracy and efficiency, ensuring prompt payments and smooth cash flow. I knew every subroutine, every security protocol, every potential vulnerability. And I knew a specific obscure clause within the contract with their payment processor, Apex Financial, a clause that stated any significant disruption in automated invoicing beyond 72 hours, without prior notification from Sterling Corp, would automatically trigger a system-wide audit and a temporary suspension of all automated transactions pending review. This wasn't an attack. This was a controlled implosion. I drafted a formal email addressed to Sterling Corp's general counsel, their head of finance, and Sterling Vance, the head of operations. I also CC'd Evelyn Reed at Horizon Enterprises and a few other key clients who relied heavily on timely invoicing. My intention was to make the impact public, undeniable. Subject: urgent clarification. Required: Sterling Corp billing system integrity and Apex Financial contractual obligations. Dear Sterling Corp legal and finance departments, this correspondence is sent with the intent of providing crucial information regarding the current operational status of Sterling Corp's automated billing and invoicing system, particularly in light of recent, and I understand, ongoing technical difficulties. As the architect of this system for the past 15 years, I wish to formally bring to your attention a specific clause within the service agreement with our payment processor, Apex Financial. Clause 7.3, titled Service Disruption and Transactional Auditing, states that any unscheduled interruption in automated invoicing and payment processing exceeding a continuous period of 72 hours without prior written notification from Sterling Corp to Apex Financial will automatically initiate a mandatory system-wide audit and a temporary suspension of all automated payment transactions. I note from my retained logs that the current disruption to the billing system, which began approximately 58 hours ago, has not been resolved. Furthermore, Apex Financial has not received the required prior written notification from Sterling Corp regarding this significant operational challenge. I am forwarding this information out of professional responsibility, as the continued operation of Sterling Corp is of considerable importance. Please be advised that according to Apex Financial's terms, the 72-hour threshold will be reached in approximately 14 hours from the time of this transmission. I strongly advise immediate consultation with Apex Financial to understand the implications of this clause and to mitigate potential transactional halts. Sincerely, Arthur Penhaligon. I sent it at precisely 3 p.m. on a Thursday. The 72-hour mark would hit late Saturday night. Enough time for the panic to set in, for the ramifications to become undeniable by Monday morning. I didn't expect them to understand the gravity. They thought they were dealing with a disgruntled ex-employee. They didn't realize I was the one who held the keys to their financial survival. They were about to discover that Sterling Corp's success wasn't built on Barty Finch's platitudes, but on the silent, meticulous work of Arthur Penhaligon. And that, my friends, was just the beginning of the unraveling. The foundation was cracking, and they were too busy admiring the paint job to notice the structural collapse. They were in deep, deep trouble. The email I sent was not a warning, it was a pronouncement, a formal declaration of independence written in the sterile language of contract law and system architecture. By Friday afternoon, the first hints of their realization began to surface. My personal phone, the one they had no access to, buzzed incessantly. Messages from colleagues morphed from casual concern to outright alarm. "Arthur, what is going on with Apex? They just sent us a notice about suspending our invoicing. Barty is losing his mind. Says it's a rogue ex-employee. Is that you?" Read a panicked text from Kevin. Then, an email from Sterling Vance, the head of operations, devoid of his usual corporate jargon, brimming with raw desperation. Subject: urgent, rebilling system, integrity, and Apex financial contractual obligations. Mr. Penhaligon, this is an urgent matter of critical importance to Sterling Corp's operational and financial stability. Your email has caused widespread panic and significant concern amongst our executive team and key stakeholders. We require an immediate explanation and, more importantly, your assistance. We are prepared to discuss any necessary compensation or terms to resolve this situation. Please advise on your availability for a call at your earliest convenience. This is not a request, it is an imperative. Sincerely, Sterling Vance, Head of Operations, Sterling Corp. Imperative, indeed, they finally understood. The Peacock CEO, Bartholomew Finch himself, had surprisingly obtained my personal number through some convoluted HR records I'd overlooked. His call came through a blocked number, a clear sign of his desperation. "Arthur," his voice, usually booming with false confidence, was strained, laced with a thinly veiled tremor. "Arthur, my friend, my colleague, we need to talk, now." I let him stew for a moment, the dial tone a silent testament to his former arrogance. Then I picked up. "Barty, to what do I owe the imperative call?" "Arthur, we've reviewed your email, and frankly, we're a bit confused. This Apex financial situation, this clause you mentioned, we don't recall any such thing. And frankly, we're seeing disruptions, significant ones. Clients are calling, the system it's not billing, people are in a panic." "Disruptions?" I echoed, a faint smile playing on my lips. "As the architect of that system, Barty, I can assure you the disruptions are quite intentional, a natural consequence of neglect." He sputtered. "Neglect? We have a whole team working on it," Vance assured me. "Sterling Vance," I interrupted, my voice hardening slightly, "is a man who uses buzzwords as a substitute for competence. He wouldn't know a system architecture diagram if it bit him, and your team is likely running around like headless chickens trying to fix a problem they don't understand because they never bothered to learn the foundations." "Foundations?" Barty scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. "What are you talking about, Arthur? You were just a systems guy. You kept the lights on." "I was the systems guy, Barty," I corrected, my voice calm, deliberate. "I built the lights, the generators, the entire power grid. And when I left, you didn't just turn off the switch, you severed the primary conduits. The delays I mentioned? Those are the cumulative effects of thousands of scheduled operations, each delayed by mere milliseconds. A digital trickle that has now become a flood, overwhelming your systems and triggering contractual breaches you never bothered to anticipate." Silence. A pregnant, heavy silence. He knew. He finally knew I wasn't just a disgruntled employee. I was the architect of his impending doom. "What do you want, Arthur?" he finally asked, his voice a low growl. The peacock was shedding its feathers. "What do I want?" I repeated the question hanging in the air. "I want what was rightfully mine. 20 years of loyalty, of unseen labor, of building the very engine that drives this company. And I want acknowledgement, not just for me, but for the principle of it. The principle that hard work, dedication, and expertise should be valued, not discarded for a shiny new management fad." I then presented him with my two options, the clear, stark choices laid out like a game of corporate chess. Option A, I began, my voice steady, is reinstatement. Full title, Senior Systems Architect. A substantial salary increase reflecting my value and experience, and a public acknowledgement of my contributions to Sterling Corp's success. Your current head of operations, Sterling Vance, resigns immediately. Furthermore, you owe me the stock options that were due to vest yesterday, plus interest. If you agree to these terms, I will personally oversee the resolution of the Apex financial issue and restore Sterling Corp to operational stability. We can put this unpleasantness behind us. Barty was silent for a moment, undoubtedly wrestling with his pride. And option B, he finally wheezed. Option B, I said, my voice chillingly even, is the alternative. You refuse, you try to bluff your way through, you continue to deny my contributions. In that case, I release all the documentation I've compiled, emails, logs, proprietary code, architectural diagrams, everything that proves my sole authorship and ownership of key Sterling Corp IP, including the core billing system, the proprietary CRM architecture, and the client analytics platform. I will also forward all evidence of Sterling Vance's gross incompetence and your personal directive to circumvent due diligence on the Apex contract to relevant regulatory bodies and every major business publication. Apex Financial will likely initiate legal action, leading to significant fines and a public relations nightmare. Clients will defect, investors will flee, and Sterling Corp will cease to exist. You will be ruined, Barty, utterly and irrevocably. I let that sink in. The air between us crackled with the weight of his impending downfall. He was a man who thrived on perception, on the illusion of control. I was about to shatter that illusion into a million pieces. "You can't do this, Arthur!" He finally burst out, his voice hoarse with fear. "This is blackmail!" "This is accountability, Barty. I corrected. You chose to be a family and then you discarded one of your own. I'm simply ensuring that the family looks after its own. You have 24 hours to decide. My offer expires then." I hung up, leaving Barty Finch to face the abyss he had so carelessly dug for himself. The next 24 hours were a tense, agonizing wait. My phone remained silent, a stark contrast to the digital storm I knew was brewing within Sterling Corp. I spent the time quietly reviewing my evidence, preparing for either outcome. I wasn't driven by malice, but by a profound sense of rectitude. Sterling Corp had built its empire on the backs of unseen labor, on the silent contributions of men and women like me. It was time for that balance to be restored. Then, just before the deadline, my phone rang. It was Sterling Vance. His voice was a caricature of subservience. "Mr. Penhaligon, Barty, Mr. Finch has authorized me to speak with you. We accept your terms. Option A, all of them. Reinstatement, salary, stock options, Vance's resignation. We just need this. Crisis averted." The relief in his voice was almost comical. They had chosen the path of least resistance, the path of survival, however humiliating. "Excellent, Sterling," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "You have made the wise decision. I will expect the official offer of reinstatement and the documentation for my stock options by end of day tomorrow. As for your resignation, Barty Finch will handle that announcement himself. I will reach out to Apex Financial directly to begin the process of resolving the system issues. And Sterling, your own departure will be handled with dignity. Just be sure to clear out your desk by Friday." And so, the deal was struck. Bartholomew Finch, the man who preached about family while firing his loyalists, was forced to publicly admit his mistake. He penned a company-wide email, not a boastful announcement, but a groveling apology for recent operational challenges and a necessary leadership adjustment. He spoke of valuing long-term employee contributions and the importance of foundational expertise. Sterling Vance, humiliated and discredited, was escorted from the premises with a severance package that would keep him quiet. My stock options, the ones they'd tried to steal, were not only reinstated but with a substantial bonus added, a tacit acknowledgement of the damage they'd caused. I returned to Sterling Corp, not as a cog, but as the master architect, my title restored, my reputation salvaged, and my former colleagues looking at me with a mixture of awe and trepidation. Barty Finch, stripped of his arrogance, became a subdued figure, a shadow of his former self, clinging to his CEO title by a thread. His family had turned on him, and he knew it. The aftermath was swift. The Apex financial system was recalibrated, the billing issues resolved within hours. Horizon Enterprises sent a congratulatory note, Evelyn Reed personally thanking me for my swift and professional intervention. The company began to stabilize, not because of new management initiatives, but because its true foundation had been reestablished. My own future was far brighter. I had my career back, my financial security assured, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd exposed the rot within Sterling Corp. Barty Finch would eventually be forced out, his incompetence too glaring to hide. The company, humbled and perhaps a little wiser, would have to rebuild, this time with a respect for the unseen labor that truly drives its success. As for me, I didn't seek revenge for revenge's sake. I sought justice. The kind that comes not from shouting, but from meticulously laid plans, from unassailable proof, and from the quiet, unwavering power of knowing your worth. Sterling Corp learned a valuable lesson. You can't fire the foundation and expect the skyscraper to stand. If watching corporate hubris meet its inevitable, meticulously orchestrated downfall brings you satisfaction, then consider hitting that like button and subscribing to Revenge of the Coffee Pot. Because the world of corporate backstabbing is full of stories waiting to be told, and Arthur Penhaligon is just one of many who refused to be erased. They thought they had won when they fired me. They were wrong. They didn't fire me. They simply gave me the keys to their kingdom, and I, Arthur Penhaligon, decided it was time to collect the rent.